What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and this is a video talking about the revised Highwayman, a hero that you start with that is pretty much damage centric, and we're going to break him down. Got some changes, so we'll talk about what he can do, what he can't do, how to play him, and some teams, and go over the items, etc. As always, if you enjoy the content, hit the like button, leave your thoughts below in the comments, make sure to check out the box for cool links like Discord, Twitter, Twitch, and Patreon, and the YouTube membership if you want to join and support the community. For strengths, Highwayman, good at damage, does a consistent amount of good damage. He doesn't have like a super mega high damage ceiling like Finale or Hellion or Leper, for instance. However, he does have consistently good damage, which is good to have in a game that has variance because consistency can help you get through some difficult stuff. His damage also has some pretty good reach. Reach is how well a hero can reach into the enemy side of the field, how deep they can go to do damage or cause effects. In the case of Highwayman, he can hit all 4 spots pretty easily. Not only that, he can do it from almost anywhere. He's very rank flexible. His final major thing to talk about though is his support ability. He's not a traditional support where he can heal stress, heal HP, give other people like strength and stuff like that. Highwayman's support comes in a couple different forms. He has combo off a tracking shot and sometimes his riposte, and then later on he unlocks highway robbery, which is really good for tokens, and we'll talk about that at the skills section. For weaknesses, his first one is he doesn't do any healing of any kind, so he can't keep himself alive, he can't keep other people alive, he's just kind of relying on tokens, and that's all he gets. Next weakness is, since he is a premium damage dealer, he does want quite a bit of mastery, especially early, because being able to get those extra couple points at 5% crits, or any other bonus effects that come with upgrading abilities, helps him round out his damage and close out some kills. There may be other stuff to talk about, but honestly, he's pretty focused in what he's trying to do, that his strengths are pretty straightforward and his weaknesses are also straightforward, so there's no nuance to this character, which can be good and can be bad. How do we play Highwayman? First, we should pick our attack loadout, obviously. Are we doing primarily range, melee, combination of both? Make sure that your team can kind of accommodate him, even though he's pretty accommodating himself. But just make sure that you're putting him where he needs to be to get everything done. Next thing to focus on when playing Highwayman is threat priority. This takes a little bit of experience with DD2. However, with Highwayman, his big thing is, since he is the damage dealer most oftentimes on your team, he needs to know who to go for, as in the player needs to know where to send him. You have to decide if he's trying to use his knife to cut down the front line or use his gun to shoot down the back line. Primarily hitting the back line is usually better just because some of the more annoying enemies are back there. So if you don't really know what to do, focus on range. Now we'll talk about Highwayman's skills and paths. Is always a fun part of the video, at least for me, and go through all of that and then some example teams help you out. So starting off, Wicked Slice. Not the most glamorous move, it's just a very solid move. It's not broken, it's not bad, it's just a really average or slightly above average move. And the reason is the damage is pretty normal. 4 to 8 was like the baseline for a long time. And then 15 to 20 crit on upgrade is pretty cool. The crit actually got better since take aim got nerfed a bit, because now you don't really rely on take aim as much as you used to. But anyway, execution 1, not the best. Cool when it goes off, but definitely not the best thing. Pistol shot doesn't do a whole lot of damage unmastered, but when mastered, it gets +2/+2, and then it stuns on combo, which is kind of insane. And it's got great reach. So don't sleep on that. Like, even on the other paths that are more melee focused, this is still good to slot in just because you get that stun. So really good. Good source of early mastery too, especially when you're running the first team, the starter team, just because reach damage is a bit harder, and this is like your best source of it early. Duelist Advance does two things. Primarily, it has riposte, which is your counterattack damage, and as you can see over here, counterattacks, or riposte I should say, drops down combo 1/3 of the time, so that's pretty cool. And the other thing is that it is forward movement. So being able to fix positioning on your team with someone like Highwayman that can operate from like any spot on the field is pretty freaking good. This is a really good move, not just for the riposte, but as I said, the movement. Not just fixing your team's position, but if you want to make a dance team, right, then you have this at your disposal, and this is usually an integral part. Really good move. May not press it every turn or every fight, but honestly just solid. Really good for multiple reasons. Tracking Shot, this is one I've been liking the more I play, because it's just guaranteed combo. You know, it can hit rank 1 now. I don't think it could do that before. And being able to ignore all dodge, doesn't ignore blind, but you ignore dodge, and you combo a target is super mega helpful. Again, especially with the early team, because we have characters like Man-at-Arms who stun off combo with upgraded Rampart and upgraded Hold the Line. Since Man-at-Arms is a bit slower than Highwayman, as we can see here, being able to just go Tracking Shot into instant stun can feel pretty cool. And the dodge removal is just really good early on too, like the Sprawl, one of the first regions you get to go to. Dodge is pretty prevalent, so just being able to snipe it off of everyone is helpful. And even the stealth removal is good early. I talk about the early game a lot because you start with Highwayman and Wanderer, so that's why I'm focusing on them. But you have Urchins, the zombie dudes that go into stealth to attack you. You can remove stealth off of them. They also won't hit you with their attack if they don't have stealth, because the trigger for them to use the music box attack is to have stealth on them. So if you take that off, they'll keep the crit token, but they'll keep trying to go into stealth. Take Aim got deservedly nerfed twice, and we're at this version. Unmastered, pressing it once is still good because you can line up, you know, serious damage turns. Like if you have strength token, or if you put down a vulnerable token on the enemy, you can take aim for Highwayman's turn to make sure that, you know, he maximizes the damage off of that. And then blind removal is just nice to have, usually. Mastered, this move gets way more justifiable because your average damage by attacking over 3 turns should be the same as your average damage with 2 crits. However, the difference is crit damage is not randomized. Crits are maximum damage roll plus 50%, so times 1.5. So a crit for 10 will crit for 15 every time unless there's some mitigating factor. Whereas, you know, that same move could be like 5 to 10, and you can do 15 over 3 turns if you low roll, or 30 over 2 with take aim. So, bunch of lame ass math, if I can be quite honest, but it's good, right? It's still good, and getting rid of blind is always good. Plus, things like take aim into pistol shot, and if you're unaware, critting an enemy with secondary effects penetrates 20% of the resist of those effects. What that means is, for instance, if someone has 40 stun resist, if you crit this pistol shot, they effectively have 20 because you penetrate 20 of it. So that means that take aim into, again, serious moves to get through resistance, or if you have items to throw at the enemy and you want them to stick, right? There's a lot of usage for these crit tokens. You can use a crit token on a healing item. And the other final good part about crits in general is that they have a chance of removing stress. So being able to do maximum damage, penetrate resist, and potentially heal stress, more often than not, is worth spending the turn to do. Especially on like turn 1 when enemies have a lot of defenses and stuff like that. It's not quite like DD1 where enemies just come in and you want to stun them right away. Like, it's okay to set up in this game. Point blank shot, just a lot of damage. Unupgraded, you know, can low roll, so it's more utility, but upgraded, that damage range gets really tight. So 10 to 13 is really good. 15 crits pretty good as well. So it's just damage, repositioning. Sharpshot is an interesting one. This is primarily to get rid of enemy defensive tokens. So if the front two dudes have block, dodge, whatever, or just those two. Even guard to an extent if someone in the back's guarding, like drummer or being guarded. Being able to ping those off is really nice, and the damage is okay. And then the speed penalty on mastery is actually pretty cool because it counters the Ordainment's speed buff. Not the best thing in the world, you know, all things considered, because it only hits 2 targets, but like, it's okay. Open Vein can do some pretty good damage if you can get through the bleed resist. So again, take aim, open vein, stuff like that. Another example, a crit token on unmastered open vein. Let's just look at that. So the crit damage will be up to 8. It should round up to 8. So like 2.5, 7.5 rounds up to 8. And if they're comboed, instead of a 4x3 bleed, you do a 4x5. So crits really scale the damage, as I was saying before. In terms of open vein itself, it's pretty solid. Damage over time is always nice to have, and it kind of effectively acts like Execute 1, so people kind of sleep on this. Like, I don't see many people run this. I don't run this myself too much, because I usually take, like, range options, but, like, not bad. Like, it's comparable to Wicked Slice. Wicked Slice has more crits, and Open Vein needs combo to really pop off, but, like, still really good. You know, they're both good for different reasons. Double Tap, really good as a boss killer or a size 2 enemy killer. We call large enemies size 2, 3, 4 because of how many spots they occupy. So size 2 enemies like Pit Fighter, Knight, those are the first ones you see. Being able to do extra damage when they're low health can, you know, help close out the fight, especially Execute 1 on Double Tap Plus. Again, bosses, you know, like your Tangle bosses, any boss really except like Librarian, you know, is pretty much double tap food. So it's really good for that. Robbery. This is one of his coolest abilities. This is one of his support options. Like his support options are tracking, robbery, and then double cross to an extent. So we'll talk about those, but removing positive tokens and lowering their crit is pretty awesome, and then upgraded, you steal the crit for yourself and steal the tokens. The rule for the tokens are first in, first out, which means that if an enemy has 8 tokens, the first 2 they got are the first 2 that are going to get, you know, removed or stolen. So, you know, just try and keep track of what they're getting. But why this is really helpful is because there are tokens that don't have inverse, which means they don't cancel themselves, or they don't get canceled by other tokens. So for instance, if you have strength and you give them a weakened token, which I can actually look at it here. So if you have a strength token and you hit them with a weak token, these cancel out, right? Likewise, if you have a weak token, the strength will cancel it out. Crit has no inverse. There's like a counter to it. You could say dodge or blind are counters, but they're not inverses. You don't blind an enemy and they lose crit. Likewise, riposte. You don't blind an enemy and they lose riposte. So what that means is you can actually get rid of those tokens much more reliably with Highwayman, because you actually can just get rid of them. Plus, when you steal them, he can use both of them very effectively. So it's a really, really nice just tempo play to have on his part, and it's really good against certain fights. Double Cross just does a little bit of damage, gives him block, removes enemy block, and then applies vulnerable. The reason this is important is because you don't cancel the block with the vuln. Instead, you get rid of the block, so your vulnerable has a chance of not getting canceled and actually sticking. Pretty good move overall. It's just Highwayman has a lot of just good moves. Like everything can be really strong. You know, not even in the if used correctly situation. Like, straight up, his moves, it's hard to find a combination of moves for this character that suck. Straight up, so. Double Cross is good. The only issue with double cross is it's competing against things like pistol shot, take aim, point blank duelist, stuff like that, even robbery. So it's like, it's just too much competition. Otherwise, still pretty good. For a starting team with the with Highwayman, the Highwayman, yes. The starting team is just good for it, right? And the reason I'm, again, focusing on this is because everyone's Wanderer. So if you're running the first team, this is how I would do it. Obviously, you start with your first 5 skills. Had her on the wrong thing. Sorry about that, but yeah. So get your first 5 skills, and this is what you're rocking on every character. My tips for this would be to give Plague Doctor the first 3 hero shrines, because she will unlock Plague Grenade and Indiscriminate Science. And so these two make a really good rank 4 Plague Doctor that's pretty safe, and you can use this like the entire game. You can still use the other things like Blinding Gas and Incision, you know, and do other stuff, of course. The issue is that range damage early on is very hard to find. You have Grave Robber hitting for, like, cupcake damage. The Blight's okay here. Highwayman does okay, especially with upgraded pistol shot, but like that's it. So Plague Grenade kind of bridges the gap and gives you a lot of backline damage, which is why it's good to get early. And then Indiscriminate Science is a really good heal. Don't need it as much early game, but later on you definitely want to have access to it. So I would say I would just rock like this. If you give Grave Robber a shrine, deservedly, I would swap out Throne Dagger. I think she gets Dead of Night first, so you can use that. And then next is Highwayman. You can actually run this for a long time. Like, you don't need to give them shrines right away. Honestly, I probably wouldn't until halfway through the game or so. Like, unless you really like him and you want to play these. But like, this set of moves does enough. Until he gets like paths, of course. And then for Man-at-Arms, I would give him a couple hero shrines till he got Retribution, just because I don't like to run Rampart and hold the line together on Wanderer. So I think Retribution is just kind of a good filler move, but also Bellow's solid too. Again, gets rid of Riposte and crit. Hard to remove tokens. Now you have 2 ways to do it. Next is going to be Rogue. I like Rogue a lot. And here's the color palette. Very cool. So for Rogue, as we see over here, Riposte still gives combo. Wicked Slice, Duelist, Take Aim, and Grape Shot. So Wicked Slice, Duelist, Take Aim, Grape Shot. These are the moves that get changed. Wicked Slice almost looks like nothing changes, except he can't use it from rank 3 anymore. As you can see, go back to Wanderer. He can't use it in the back half of the party. He has to be up front. But you get all the same stats except Execute 2. And the reason this is really important is because Execute 1 effectively doesn't do too much, especially with damage over time. Execute 2 does a lot. A lot of enemies have 2 death armor, so you penetrate 2 of those. Bosses, a lot of bosses have 2 death armor, and you don't have to rely on damage over time. You don't have to hit them a couple times. Enemies like Knight get damage bonuses at Death's Door instead of penalties, so being able to just execute them is always fantastic. So Execute 2 is super good. It's kind of weird because Execute 1, not that good. Execute 3, very, very niche and not super good. Because, like, the only times you use it are kind of like, do you need it at that point? I don't know. But Execute 2 is the sweet spot. So this is a really, really good one to have. Duelist Advance. This goes forward 2 instead of forward 1, and it gives him block instead of dodge. Upgraded gives him block plus, which is cool, so he takes a quarter damage, and then 2 riposte instead of 3. Again, Duelist Advance in this case, really, really, really good for the movement aspect, because it keeps him up front. And he wants to be up front with this path. Like, everything operates in the front 2 spots. And then block's okay. I think dodge is better in most cases, but block plus is still, you know, definitely not going to turn my nose up at that. Take Aim gets way more interesting. He gets speed, riposte, and then turn start gets riposte. And then mastered he gets bonus riposte damage. All of that is pretty cool. The issue that Rogue Highwayman runs into is that you cannot spend all of this riposte fast enough. You know, if you're getting 2 riposte and then you get 1 riposte every turn for free, and then you like dual savant, you're always sitting on like 3 riposte. And yeah, you can't use all of it at the same time, but that doesn't mean that it's still, I guess, bad, because you always have it, right? You always have it up. I guess the issue instead is like action economy, opportunity cost, stuff like that. So I probably wouldn't run both of these together in terms of just trying to constantly have riposte, but they're still solid together. Although you can probably work out take aim, honestly, because if you're going to use dual savants, it's just easier to use because you can make more movement heavy teams, and static teams where you stand in place are fine, they work, but Highwayman has so much movement that it's like, if he can't, you know, move around to help out, you know, he kind of limits what moves he gets. So like if you take aim and you don't want to do movement, you know, you lose duelist, you lose point blank, you lose grape shot in this case. So you can make it work still, but I think it's much easier to use duelist advance. So if we took an example here, we can run Wicked Slice, duelist, probably pistol still, point blank, and then you can do point blank or grape shot actually, because this is big damage, of course. And then grape shot is really good at removing tokens. So let's use the pass skill here. And then your final one is pretty flexible. You want to be up front, so I don't know if you always get access to double tap, so we won't take that, but tracking shot, never bad. Robbery, really good for the fights that you need it to perform in. And then double cross, also pretty good. This might be like the coolest use of double cross. So we'll just leave it like this for now. An example team for Rogue here is we're going to run Nightsworn. Keynotes of this build here are we have Stealth from 3 different sources, and we have Lunge as a primary attack move, and then we have Throw Dagger if we need a little bit of reach. These can be swapped around a little bit, like later on if you're fighting a boss where you can't use Dead of Night, you can run Absinthe, or you can run Pick to the Face or Glint in the Dark if you need some kind of upfront option, you know, in case stuff goes awry. But yeah, so normally probably rocking this for most of the time. Vestal, we're going to do Seraph, you can do Wanderer as well. The most important skill here is Consecration of Light. This puts down a positional buff where at the start of that unit's turn, they get Strength. Or if it's upgraded, they have a chance of getting crits, which are both really good for what we're trying to do. Administration is really good for keeping the team healthy, getting rid of negative effects. Sanctuary, good for guarding people if stuff goes wrong, and it can stress heal, but this is a pretty flexible move set. The only ones I would say are super important are Consecration of Light and probably Ministrations. Highwayman running what we were talking about before, and we're going with the token clearing, Grape Shot. And then Crusader can be any path here but Aggressor. This is not an Aggressor team. You can make it work, but really I would much rather run other stuff here. So the important ones to note are we have, actually they're all important. So Holy Lance to move out of rank 3 because we're making a dance team. If Highwayman lands some random combo, we might be able to stun it, which is nice with Stunning Blow. Healing, direct healing to help out with Vestal. Stress healing, which can also be really helpful, and maybe you don't want to run Sanctuary, for instance. And then finally Bulwark, because anytime he's up front, you can press this, because Taunt is a very stupid token that is very, 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 very powerful. So you may as well use it. And what ends up happening with this team is your first turn with Grave Robber, you can either repartee to Taunt Dismiss, so he can get ready to repose stuff, or you can just lunge off the bat, or you can flip it around and start Grave Robber up here, like this, and then Shadow Fade on turn 1. There are a lot of options, but let's just say you lunge turn 1, alright? Just to get that early damage, you might get a crit and kill something. You lunge turn 1, Grave Robber comes up here, and your team looks like this. She's faster than Highwayman, so more often than not, she should go first. Highwayman's turn 1 can be duelist advance, so now your team looks like this. Crusader, end of turn 1, can hit Bulwark. Vestal, end of turn 1, can hit Consecration of Light. You probably want it right here on the 3 spot. Turn 2 begins. Grave Robber can lunge again because we reset them. It's called a double lunge team. And she had the strength token from Vestal. Highwayman can use his riposte that he has saved up, and he can like double cross something, pistol shot something, wicked slice. Like, he has this entire moveset here if you want it. You could even duelist again because there's no cooldown. So you could duelist a second time, and then with Crusader, I was gonna say Highwayman, he gets the strength token, and then you can Holy Lance back up here, and it's reset again, and you can lunge again. So that's why these types of teams are pretty fun and cool. Anytime you do a range attack, it should probably go into rank 4, because hitting rank 3 is pretty easy for this team. So the very back of the enemy party is where you want to put any off-turn range damage. Yeah, I like this. If you don't have Crusader, you can run Man-at-Arms and use Rampart, or even Hold the Line. Like, there are advantages to running Hold the Line here, because it keeps everyone out of the front, so it's easier to dance with the other two. But yeah, if you do end up running this, I would probably get rid of Sanctuary on Vestal, and instead I would run like Divine Grace, just some big emergency heal if you need it. And with Man-at-Arms, he can handle the stress healing, and he has his own guard and taunt and stuff like that. So they're both pretty good, just for different reasons. I think it's just more fun with Crusader, so that's why I ran that. Next, we'll talk about Sharpshot. And Sharpshot is much more straightforward. It's a range damage path. Your abilities that get changed, your riposte still inflicts combo. It only changes on Yellowhand, the effect. Pistol Shot loses the stun, but it does way more damage. And then we have Point Blank goes back 2 instead of back 1, so you can always go back to where he needs to be in the back of the party. Rape Shot hits the back 2 units for pretty respectable damage. Double Tap changes entirely. So Double Tap goes from, some kind of low HP, big damage execute effect to literally shooting 2 times. There are pros and cons to this. The other thing too is the move has to hit the same target twice. You can't shoot one and then shoot something else. If you shoot and kill the first one, you don't get the second shot. It just doesn't work. With that said, Double Tap is really, really good for utility. You can hit rank 4 with it, which is very important. Especially because that makes Pistol Shot very important, in comparison. But Double Tap, really good at managing tokens. So if the enemy has multiple dodge, and you don't tracking shot for some reason, you can shoot through it twice. They have 2 block, you can ping both of them. If Highwayman happens to have blind or weaken that you don't want to use take aim or it's on cooldown, you can double tap and get rid of them. So a lot of cool and effective stuff here. The other thing is, once it's upgraded, both shots have execution. So the second shot mirrors the first shot. So on the upgrade, it's 3 to 5 damage, 10 crit, execute 1. Now, the reason I bring this up and try and emphasize that double tap is utility is because there are people in DD Cord that seem to think this does more damage on average than Pistol Shot. And you can set up any scenario you want, damage bonuses, trinkets, memories, what have you, and sometimes this can edge it out by like 1 or 2 damage. But consistently, this is just the better damage option. It's higher damage. It's got better crits, like natural crit rates. It scales better with tokens. It's more efficient with tokens. You can take aim and get 2 pistol shots that are both crits instead of take aim and get 1 double tap that are both crits. And it's just less damage, right? So 2 double tap crits is 16. 2 pistol shot crits is 30. even if you add the second turn of just average damage, you have your 2 8 damage crits, that's 16, and then this average is 4 damage, so you have another 8, so it's 24 damage over 2 turns. This is 30 damage over 2 turns and has crit healing and just better, you know, burst damage potential, token scaling, and the like. So what I'm trying to say here is if you have positive tokens, you're trying to maximize damage, it's pistol shot. If you're trying to hit rank 4, it's pistol shot. If you are trying to mitigate a lot of tokens or you do need the execute effect because stuff is low health, then it's double tap. They're not mutually exclusive, they're good for different reasons. Rant over. So with all of these, I would actually most likely run this setup. I probably take out point blank. You don't need that as much. And the reason is that double tap moves back. So you can ping twice and get backwards if it's an issue. Or you can open with point blank if you really want to. But this is most likely what you're going to be running. These 4. And then your last thing is optional. Probably robbery, honestly. Just so you can get tokens off of enemies as needed. You can also do tracking or point blank, as I said. This will not be a 10-minute discussion on a team because Sharpshot is brain dead, easy, and efficient. You just put them in 3, most likely 4, and you run whatever setup that you want to make full use of that damage. So here's an example team. We have a little bit of movement, but then just utility and a lot of reach. So this is a team that's primarily focused on doing direct damage, but we still cover every base. We have Blight, potentially Bleed, and then we have Reach, big damage, and then again, Reach and big damage here. Looking at it, we have the Sharpshot loadout that we talked about before. For Jester, Wanderer is just fine. You can use Wit, Fade, both good together. Tune, always good to have. Ballad, you could also run Harvest or even Slice Off if you want to, but Ballad kind of helps with the damage, you know, when you want to put it on other characters. Plus you get the potential crit if you upgrade it, but it's a little harder to work in, unless you're putting it on Hellion. So if you're not going to master this, then you probably want it. If you master it, then it's primarily going to Hellion. Next, with Flagellants, can be most paths. I wouldn't say Exanimate. Like, Wanderer, really good here. Maniac, okay here. Exanimate, you want a Blight team. Scourge, always good. Because Scourge is just, like, ridiculous, so. For Flagellants, just some light damage, reach. Works very well with Grape Shot and Iron Swan that we're going to see in a minute. More, one of the dumbest, best moves in the entire game. Again, taunt. And then finally we have Sepsis to just throw out some big damage whenever, you know, the conditions are met. Ravager Hellion right now because it hasn't been changed yet. So we get bonus damage up front, and there's Iron Swan to reach rank 4. Howling End to blow something the hell up. Toe-to-toe to stay in a position. And then 2 different forms of healing. Though you could swap out Raucous and put like Breakthrough, which sounds like cardinal sin here. But if you are, for some reason, getting moved around a lot, because some regions like to throw people all over the place, then it's actually not a bad option. So that's what I'm running here. So this is a much easier team to pilot. Like, you just put these 4 into like this position. And Wit and Fade can go back and forth, right? These 2 can go back and forth, and it doesn't, you know, screw up anything. And Highwayman can always push himself back with his moves. So yeah, handles most content pretty well. This might be a Grand Slam worthy team. Like, it's that solid, like it's that cohesive. So I feel like it's pretty good. I should say it's really good. Not to pat myself on the back. And then finally we have Yellowhand, which I love this path. It's not the best by any means, but I love Yellowhand. And so with Yellowhand, we change the outfit too. Riposte now inflicts bleed. Very important. So it's not the same as it was the other 3 times. And our skills that get changed are Open Vein, Grape Shot, Robbery, and it says Riposte, so we only get 3 changes technically. Alright, So Open Vein now doesn't scale off combo, but it does lower bleed resist. Highway Robbery gives him bonus bleed damage dealt when upgraded, and it lowers enemy bleed damage dealt, alongside doing the token stuff. The reason this is really important is because bleed is the most common damage over time in the game. It appears everywhere in all regions from multiple enemies, which means that being able to lower that damage coming out is super good. Like, effectively, this is -6 damage every time it sticks to something. You know, sometimes you don't take a bleed at all. That's pretty good. And then Grape Shot also lowers bleed resist, but it's also good for like the token mitigation. Otherwise, you know, it's kind of like, it's okay. It's not like its best performance. It's good for a setup. So what happens with Yellowhand is you either are doing bleed damage or you're setting up other people to do bleed damage. You can actually run all of it, honestly. So maybe something like this. Just to have Open Vein for the damage, Grape Shot to set other people up if you run a full bleed team, Duelist Advance to set up the bleed riposte, Point Blank to fix position, and then Robbery if you need it. If you're not going to use Robbery, then Take Aim, Double Cross, Tracking, Pistol Shot, still very good. I would actually even consider not running Grape Shot for a team like this. Just because Open Vein Mastered already lowers bleed res, and the bleeds that exist in the game, you know, they hit 1, 2, and 3 primarily. 2 and 3 are like, 2's like the most common hit. 3 and 1 are still there, but not as prevalent. This is kind of pushing the limit of what we can do as like a full-on bleed team while also still being effective, because the issue with bleed teams is that there aren't highly dedicated bleed characters. There are bleed paths and bleed abilities, but there aren't things like Arsonist or Alchemist. There aren't full bleed characters, as I was saying. Like, Flagellant is a full blight character. Grave Robber, pretty good at blight, even with one skill, but she has a path that gives her even more blight through Venom Drop. So we don't really have the whole bleed synergy package yet. So you're just kind of picking pieces. And you're really looking at these 3 and Jester, because he has 2 bleeds here. And if you're really nutty, you can do Aspirant Occultist and do Anamnesis. But I'm not going to put you through that right now. So we're going to run Berserker Hellion. Loadout can be obviously tweaked a bit. Breakthrough and Bloodlust are kind of questionable, but like, if you're going to use them, this is the time, you know? Or at least Bloodlust, because it does last 5 turns and it gets rid of Winded. The execute 1, if they're bleeding, just doesn't matter, so like, never master this. Just don't master this ever. And with Breakthrough, this is just to get her back into the spots she needs to be without immobilizing her, and we're going to let Dismiss fix the rest of it. So again, not focusing on rank 4 damage. We're going to have to deal with killing the front ones and then pulling stuff up. So Bleed Out does pretty solid damage here with the resist penetration. If it bleeds, kind of tough to run them both together, but they do work, and this is like the time you should do it. And then finally, Adrenaline Rush just to heal. If you want to swap stuff around, like if you don't want Bloodlust, you can run Iron Swan, and you can still run like Revelry or Toe to Toe. Like, those are still okay. It's just, you want to make sure that you have a consistent Winded clear, and Bloodlust doesn't take a mastery where Toe to Toe does, and Adrenaline Rush is conditional. Yellowhand, doing the stuff we talked about before, and the reason I'm not going to use Grape Shot here, even though you definitely can, is just because Mastered Open Vein is something we want early, and it does the same thing. So that way you can just dogpile the target of choice. And then also we have Duelist Advance. So a team like this would either start Highwayman up front, or you would Duelist Advance on turn 1. So that way you can set that up, and then you can Point Blank after, but The goal is mainly that you want Hellion in the second spot for the first couple turns to spam if it bleeds until those things are gone, and then finally Dismiss moves back and she can spam bleed out, because that's going to be a bunch of damage. You want to bleed out last. This was kind of the pattern of playing Hellion in the first game, which was Iron Swan if it bleeds and then bleed out, just, you know, work back to front. Same thing applies here. Surgeon. This could be Wanderer too, if you really want some flexible stuff, but, you know, people might like Surgeon just for, you know, the fun. And so, get some pretty big damage on this. This is actually, I think, the strongest bleed attack that we have out of the cast in terms of, like, on-hit damage. Like, Open Veins 3 to 5. You know, this just gets smoked by Incision. And then we have, you know, Bleed Out's 4 to 8 with a 4-point bleed, but it also debuffs her. So Incision is actually hella good on this path. It's kind of crazy. Your other skills definitely want the 2 heals, so Medicine and Science, and Magnesium Rain to get rid of corpses and pull enemies forward. This is why Occultist kind of fits in here if you wanted to, because you can use Demon's Pull, which also gets rid of corpses, you know, and pulls people up. Blinding Gas, pretty solid pick, especially if you're not doing Iron Swan, just because it, you know, blinds the backline. But other good moves to have are Cause of Death. Really good against size 2s. You know, put out a bunch of that damage as burst. Bosses also. Just to, you know, shorten the length of the fight. It's going to sound weird, but Plague Grenade is also an option. Yes, the Blight Piercing sucks entire sour candy. I don't want to say anything too graphic. But it does on-hit damage, so this can ping stuff in the back and finish it off. Again, that's pretty niche. So usually Blinding Gas and even Disoblast is okay here. Disoblast needs a buff just entirely. But, like, you know, outside of Physician, this is a place where it's okay to do it. So, you got options. Main thing is you want Incision, the 2 heals, and maybe Magrain, but you can run something like this easily. This is the spicy pick here. We're going to run Sergeant. Looks very close to our Wanderer loadout, but Sergeant is a backline Man-at-Arms. I'm going to make the Man-at-Arms videos after this one, or the video, so you get the full lowdown there, but Sergeant is a backline Man-at-Arms. You put him in rank 4. Crush hits all the way up from the backline into the front, you know, the back of your party. Bolster and Defender still do the same thing, but the other things that change here are Bellow, Retribution, and Standfast. With Plague Doctor, we don't need Standfast that much, you know, it's a solid ability, just because, you know, we can cure it with, like, Battlefield Medicine, but this is still pretty good to put in depending on fights. More often than not, though, this is just easier to do. Command, not really concerned about. Like, yes, there is combo synergy here, you know, and you can do some shenanigans like Command on Magnesium Rain and combo the party. You know, there's stuff like that. But otherwise, you know, the slots get competitive, as I said. If you did that, you probably swap out either Bellow or Retri and then put on Command. And so, the reason we have Bellow is to give, you know, the party speed, obviously, but then there's also token mitigation, which is nice to have. Getting your entire team, you know, a shot of 3 speed is really good. That gets you past the Ordainment buff, that gets you close to Hasten modifiers, and other buffs like Antiquarian and stuff, so it's a really solid thing to have. And with damage over time, if you're able to go first and put it down before they get their turn, you're stacking your damage a little more efficiently. So it's still good to go first in that situation. And finally, there's Retribution. This does strength on the party, or allies ahead, I should say, if they're under a quarter, but you probably want to master this. So if they ever take any point of damage, you can give them strength guaranteed. And if they're low, they get crit. And everyone likes crit. So this can kind of help juice up some moves like Incision and the bleed outs of the world. And even Pistol Shot to an extent, if you want to keep that. Or Point Blank, right? So it's a fun team. It covers the bases. It does struggle with reach a little bit. So you really have to like bulldoze the front and then pull those up. or, you know, run different skills like Iron Swan, as I was saying. So it's cool. Give it a try, and you can run other stuff too, but, you know, this is a combination of a little bit creative, but then also effective. Now we'll look at Highwayman's personal trinkets. So Curse Coin gives him damage per positive token that he has. Highway Robbery steals regeneration, which is not common, but it's kind of cool. And then if you have a lot of relics in the inventory, you get less crit. This, it's solid. You just want to make sure that you have buffers on the team so he can constantly, you know, keep giving himself stuff. And it kind of seems like a Yellowhand trinket at first, but it's actually pretty good for Rogue, because Rogue gives him constant riposte and like speed and, you know, whatever else. So being able to have that up constantly, and then, you know, if you have Consecration of Light or just something to dump strength on him, then you can scale up the damage pretty well. So it's good for like any Highwayman, but like if you're not able to get constant positive tokens, it doesn't seem too effective. Rat Skull, if you can give Highwayman some speed, then Rat Skull is pretty helpful because you have a chance of crit. Take Aim ignores blind if you use it with this trinket, and it's like, well, Take Aim already gets rid of blind, so why do I need that? Well, in case you get blinded again, which does happen, before you get to use your crits, or if you're running Rogue in this case, you get to ignore blind on all of your posts, which is pretty sick. Tracking Shot lowers stun resist, so that really helps set up other stun units in the game. I keep making the little stupid finger gun motion when I talk about Tracking Shot. I don't know why. Don't judge me. Against creatures, so, you know, animals and the like, creature dens specifically, you get less healing from skills, which sounds scary, but, you know, if you run into a creature den, just take it off. Put it in the bag, don't use it for a fight, and then put it back on. Tormenting Lockets. This is a very odd one because you get the bonus crit in rank 4, but you can only use your range skills mostly from there besides Duelist Advance. So you do use those range skills, you have a chance of stressing yourself. Meanwhile, being in rank 1 is no consequence, so it's just 10 free crit. So you also get the bonus bleed on Open Vein, which can be helpful. Ironically, you know, maybe not on Yellowhand, just because, you know, if you get those combo, oh, it's still good on Yellowhand. I was gonna say if you combo Open Vein and you get like the double bleed, it's also pretty good. The reason I don't like this trinket too much is, for one, it's like too conditional for like mediocre outcomes, and the second is it's a class trinket, and you compare it to something like Heartseeker, which I had to go find, but yeah, Greater Heartseeker is just 10 crit flat. You know, so what? You don't get your Open Vein bleed, you don't stress yourself for using a gun. So it's like, you know, probably just better to run a Heartseeker at that point. Although, you can argue that's a class trinket, so you can give it to him and then give Heartseeker to someone else. Of course, but when you start opening the what-if portal, you start bringing in the frickin' multiverse of conditional hypothetical situations, and all of a sudden everything's good. I hate that. So Tormenting Locket, not that good. Alright, all that does it for the video. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Next up is Man at Arms. And as always, if you want to support the community, again, check out the description box. Check out the variety content too. It's really cool and awesome. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.